Feminism is what we say it is. And we say that feminism is the problem. Putting the conversation where it needs to be, this is the Vanguard Report.
Hello, this is Monday, January 26, 2015. Welcome to episode number 36 of the Vanguard Report. Feminism is what we say it is. Our job is to make that stick. They've been telling the world what the world is for long enough. We, the non-feminist majority, are the rest of the world. Now it's our turn, and we intend to turn the tables. Feminism, as you know, is not merely a list of talking points, not merely a reform agenda. It's way more than that. Feminism is a narrative, a mindset, an overarching, all-embracing story about the nature of reality. In short, feminism is a worldview. We know that feminism is just one worldview among many, and yet feminism aims to be the only worldview, the one official version of reality that everybody on earth will embrace as their own. That is what feminism aspires to, and to us, that is sheer presumption, sheer aggression, and sheer hubris. When we say that feminism is what we say it is, you might think that we are being aggressively presumptuous. But no, all we are really doing is turning the tables on a bully. Yes, they started it. Feminism has no mandated cultural authority. It just pretends that it does. This pretension is ripe to be punctured. Feminism is what we say it is. That sounds a damn sight less presumptuous than to say non-feminism is what they say it is. So in the end, we are simply reclaiming our self-definition. We, non-feminist men and women, we, the rest of the world, and the rest of the universe clear out to the last quasar. That's the non-feminist sector. It's pretty big. In defining ourselves, we discover that we can't help defining them too, as a consequence. Yep, therefore, feminism is what we say it is. All right, welcome once again to episode 36 of the Vanguard Report. I am Fiedelbogen, your host, and with me is my fellow host, Nick Redding, man of Canada and true son of the Alberta Prairie. Nick, say hello.
Hey everybody, I'm Nick Redding with mensrightsedmonton.com. I would appreciate it if you guys would check out our YouTube channel. I just put up a video today. Go to our webpage, mensrightsedmonton.com, and follow us on Twitter at mensrightsed. I think that's how you spell it, just mensrightsed. Yeah, we're always looking to meet new people. So if you're in Edmonton or you're around Edmonton or you're going to be in Edmonton soon, drop us a line. We'd love to talk with you.
Okay, great. I will second what Nick said about that video. It's great. I first saw it about a half an hour ago. Nick finished it just in time for the show. I'm going to throw a couple of links at you. This would be Q number 4 and Q number 5 showing up in your chat window. The first one is to a page on mensrightsedmonton.com, a page called Non-Feminist Branding, and there you will see the non-feminist logo in 8 different languages. And these are English, German, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Hebrew, Hindi, Urdu, and I guess that's it. That's 8 languages. More coming up. We've got Turkish, Russian, Polish, Swedish, and Italian coming up in the near future. So the non-feminist brand is truly global. You can take those, use them, post them on your website. You can expand them and print them onto a t-shirt. You can put them on a coffee mug. You can put them on a baseball cap. Heck, you can do all kinds of things. You can make a poster out of it. Or you can incorporate them as a design element in some poster of your own. Whatever you want to do, that's the non-feminist brand. Any language you want, whatever country you're from. If you don't speak those languages, share them with your friends who do. You could even make them into bumper stickers, but, well, you know, you park your car and you come back a few hours later, you might find your tires slashed or a brick through your windshield. That's what non-feminism does to some people. The idea that there is anything beyond feminism just provokes people into batshit behavior sometimes. So be careful about that. And, of course, always be recording and gathering evidence. Anyway, I'd like to share a couple of articles, well, no, 3 articles off of the internet, as we customarily do around here. This will be Q number 1. Q number 1. Let me pull that up in my browser. Here we go. This is a charming story that will touch your heart in a very special way. Mom accused of setting baby afire is held on $500,000 bail. Setting baby on fire. Mount Holly, New Jersey. A woman accused of dousing her newborn daughter with accelerant, setting her on fire, and leaving her in the middle of a road said little in her first court appearance Tuesday, appearing on video to answer to a murder charge. Hyfern Kimberly Dorvilliers. That's her name, Hyfern Kimberly. Okay, that's what it says. Hyfern Kimberly Dorvilliers was read the charge by Superior Court Judge Philip Haynes. He maintained her $500,000 bail, which was set after police found her baby in flames Friday night in the middle of a Pemberton Township road, and arrested her. Dorvilliers was found with a can of WD-40 and a lighter in her jacket pocket, investigators said. The baby had burns over most of her body, they said in court documents released by Burlington County prosecutors. Dorvilliers, 22, said she was planning to hire a private attorney. Well, sounds like she's got some money. The judge said that if she were to post bail, she would not be released until a psychiatric evaluation was presented to the court. Apparently, she set a baby on fire, her own baby. That would make it for an interesting psychiatric evaluation, I'm sure. When the baby was found, she still had the umbilical cord and placenta attached, investigators said. Prosecutors haven't specified a motive for her killing. There was no answer at the 2-story house where Dorvilliers lives with her mother and sister on a quiet suburban street in Pemberton, a town of 28,000 residents. Police responded to a call about a fire on a road in the township, 30 miles east of Philadelphia. When they arrived, they found a neighbor holding Dorvilliers down on the ground and the baby wrapped in a smoldering towel and paper, according to court documents. The defendant was interrupted in the act of committing the crime, prosecutor Jim Ronca said. The baby was alive and breathing when she was flown to a hospital in Philadelphia, but she died 2 hours later. Neighbor Dave Joseph, who discovered the burning baby and held Dorvilliers down, told police Dorvilliers said the baby wasn't hers. Police said they found a trail of blood leading from Dorvilliers' home, and she appeared to be bleeding while at the hospital afterward. Dorvilliers' mother and sister told police they were unaware of her giving birth, but police said they found blood on the floor of their home's downstairs bathroom. Joseph said Dorvilliers told him, get this. Joseph said Dorvilliers told him she was burning dog waste. Well, that just sounds like an old American tradition, burning dog shit in the middle of the street. Yeah, people do that around here, I know. It's just kind of a neighborhood thing. It was just mind-boggling, Joseph told the Burlington County Times. It was a nightmare even if you have a strong heart. A candlelight vigil is scheduled for Wednesday night at Browns Mills United Methodist Church. The baby's funeral is planned for January 26th at the church. And this has gotten 749 comments. The comments are all of a very melodramatic nature. I think we can imagine how people responded to a story like this. Nick, you got any, just off the top of your head impressions about that story?
Well, yeah, the first thing that people say that the first people will rush to the defense. A lot of people will rush to the defense of a woman like this, say that she's obviously not in her right mind. But the thing is, that's pretty obvious. You burn your baby in the middle of the street, you're obviously not you're not thinking straight. And I think that people who do this, on the one hand, they do deserve our sympathy because it's got to be awful to be them. But at the same time, they do have to be held responsible. I think the reason, that's it. I think they have to be held responsible. Yeah.
They do. And their sex, whether it be male or female, really is no factor here. Either way, they should be held responsible. It's interesting. You hear about men committing more crime and being more violent, and yet it doesn't seem like you hear very much about men killing children, especially newborn children. That seems to be sort of a female province, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I've actually spent a lot of time thinking about this. When I was a kid, my friend's second uncle or uncle removed or something, some removed family relation, he went nuts and he killed his family and then he killed himself. And I've looked at a lot of these situations, these scenarios where men go nuts and kill a bunch of people, their family, and women go nuts and kill their family. And the theme, usually, it's not always, but usually what happens is the men will kill their children, their wives, and themselves, and the women will just kill their children.
Yes, like the case of Andrea Yates comes to mind.
There's a lot of cases.
Yeah, there are a lot of cases. There was a case of the woman who cut off the arms of her baby with a kitchen knife. There was a case of...
was she religiously motivated?
Well, she was apparently a highly religious person, and she was singing hymns while she was doing this. This was a long time ago. This was maybe 12 or 13 years ago. Happened in Texas, as did the Andrea Yates case. And then there was I believe her name was Susan Smith, who drowned her children in the car, who drove it into a lake, if I recall correctly. There are a lot of these. Yes.
Go ahead.
Oh, yes. I'm saying, yes, there is a definite pattern of women killing their own children. There's just different things that men and women do, that women characteristically do and men characteristically do, which, well, points to a kind of essentialism, I would say, which is not what one school of feminism embraces or endorses. There is one school of feminism, the more classic school of feminism, which denies essentialism, repudiates essentialism, but then there is the more underground undercurrent of feminism, which totally embraces essentialism. But anyway, that's a separate topic. Anyway, if a man had done something of comparable magnitude, we all know what would happen. The feminists would be all over it. I'm not aware of any feminists saying much about this story here or any story like it. They tend to let it drop and slip away as quickly as possible. It's not worthy of note when women do bad things, but it's worthy of note when men do bad things. That appears to be the feminist way of thinking.
Yeah, there was, remember when there was the Cross Canada effort to put up those dumpster baby posters?
I remember that, yes.
Well, Raz got on the news. He did a news radio interview for that. And there was a woman on there saying, she's going, when women do this, it's postpartum depression and you can't judge them and all these things. So she was very clearly a feminist, and his stance was what I said before, is that obviously if someone is doing this...
Excuse me, Nick, did she admit that she was a feminist?
No.
She didn't. She did, being a weasel and just keeping that under wraps. She didn't say, I'm a feminist. Typical of them.
No, in one of Dr. Randomer Cam's more recent videos, he called How You Do. And there's a woman on there talking about... She's endorsing the idea of talking about feminism without talking about feminism. Surprise, surprise.
You have to give me the link to that, Nick. I think I missed that one.
It's a good one. I'll show you. I'll show you later.
Okay,
But anyway,
great.
Raz goes on the news and he gets this woman on there saying that you have to be more sympathetic, and he had the same stance. Is that of course you have to be sympathetic to, like what I said before. You have to be sympathetic to people who do these horrible things. But that sympathy is not there. That jump to sympathy is not there when you hear about a guy going on a psychotic rampage and murdering people.
No, it certainly is not. That's the double standard. That's the empathy apartheid. Anyway, next story I'd like to share. This would be Q number 2. This is a story from Pakistan, published in the online journal Chaurangi. Pakistan politics, current affairs, business, and lifestyle. Q number 2. Let's see here. All children killed in Peshawar school attack were boys. Why media not telling this? When over 200 Nigerian girls were kidnapped in April, the world started a Bring Back Our Girls campaign. It became an international issue which had the backing of the Obama administration and feminists. Of course, it didn't matter that a couple of months prior to that, on the 25th of February, 59 Nigerian boys were mutilated, their throats slit, and many burnt alive by the same men who had kidnapped the girls. But the horrendous incident was sidelined. Crimes against boys is not news. This time around, in a gruesome incident where 133 boys were killed in a school attack in Peshawar, the media termed it an attack against school children. The gender was not specified. Pardon me for interjecting. I wish it would say the sex was not specified, not the gender. But that's another conversation. In this day and age, with feminists demonizing men and draping women in the cloak of victimhood, and the media busy collecting dollars, exaggerating the plight of women and downplaying crimes against men, it seems as though a man is an entity to be subdued. From east to west, the media is biased and prejudiced, with India probably taking the lead with its lies about dowry harassment. How would it have appeared if the media had reported that Nigerian, quote, children were kidnapped instead of referring to the female gender? No one would have thought any such thing possible. But when boys are massacred, the incident has to be hidden, if not the gender altogether. How else will the ever-so-green image of women as victims be propelled by the media? Also, can one imagine the term children being used if we reverse the scenario and imagine that all the students who were killed in Peshawar were girls? The media and feminists thrive on biased reporting and the twisting of facts. It is a deliberate modus operandi hidden from the public eye. This is neither the first time nor the last in which crimes against boys have been desperately brushed under the carpet or tried to be molded to fit the blooming image of girls as the oppressed gender. And that's the article. Short but good, and a lot of juicy food for thought in that article. Those double standards. And moving on to Q number 3. State tells Detroit man, pay for a child that isn't yours or go to jail. This is from, what's this? WXYZ.com. It's a radio station, apparently. State tells Detroit man, pay for a child that isn't yours or go to jail. Carnell Alexander is a wanted man. The reason? He refuses to pay child support for a child that is proven to not be his. As a result, a warrant has been issued for his arrest. 7 Action News told you about Carnell Alexander in October. He said he was looking for help clearing up a terrible mistake. Alexander says he learned about the paternity case against him during a traffic stop in Detroit in the early 90s. The officer told him he was a deadbeat dad. There was a warrant out for his arrest. I knew I didn't have a child, so I was kind of blowing back, said Alexander during an interview in October. He would later learn this happened because his ex needed help caring for her kids. I put him down as a father to get assistance, she told 7 Action News. She didn't realize that would start a paternity case. The state would want to get reimbursement for welfare benefits from the child's dad. A process server turned in paperwork to the court saying Carnell had been notified of the paternity hearing. The paperwork said the notification happened at a house in Highland Park because on paper he had been given notice. When he didn't show up at court, he was legally listed as father by default. 7 Action News found out there must have been some mistake. On the day Carnell was allegedly served at a house in Highland Park, the Michigan Department of Corrections said he was actually incarcerated for a crime he committed as a young man. He could not possibly have been served as recorded. It is unknown whether this was fraud or a case of mistaken identity. By the time Carnell learned about the paternity case, judges told him it was too late. Legally, he owes the state more than $30,000 for assistance paid to care for a child. A child that I did not father, that I did not biologically create, that I was not involved in raising, said Carnell. It is not fair. DNA tests prove the child is not his. The real father was in the child's life, but the state never pursued him for payment as far as Carnell and the child's mother know. Carnell refuses to pay. As a result, the warrant was issued for his arrest. He plans to turn himself in on Friday. I will go to jail if I have to because I am tired of the mishandling of the case, said Carnell. It's not right, said Murray Davis of the National Family Justice Association. Davis says there are thousands of men in Carnell Alexander's shoes because Michigan doesn't have paternity fraud laws that protect men. When there is evidence a woman mistakenly or purposefully declares the wrong man as husband, it doesn't necessarily impact paternity obligations. Davis did a study a few years back that looked at how many of the men who are declared fathers by default in Wayne County are indeed the father. He says DNA tests found 79% of the time they are not. Wow. DNA tests found 79% of the time they are not the actual biological father, even though they are declared so. It is so easy to say anyone is the father while applying for assistance. Attorney Sharika Harris has volunteered to try to help Carnell Alexander. She said she will ask a judge to lift the arrest warrant when he turns himself in on Friday. Oh, boy. Nick, what do you think about that?
I think it's typical. I mean, I have a coworker that I discussed. He's a total Captain Save-A-Ho. I was discussing paternity fraud with this guy and male reproductive rights, and he just, the wetware kicked in, and he's just going, oh well, what about the future of the child? What about the rights of the child? Doesn't even
doesn't register on him that something is being done to a man, does it?
Well, it doesn't even register. The idea of a man being anything other than
gynocentrism, anybody? Male disposability, anybody? Empathy, apartheid, anybody?
I think I know that feminists, they say that women who agree with us, that they have Stockholm Syndrome. So it's just, Stockholm Syndrome, privilege, oppression, throw another word that used to mean something on the fucking fire. I do think that these guys have Stockholm Syndrome because, I've talked with these guys. I've talked with my dad. And, when you start bringing up the notion that men have lives that mean something.
And value, yes, for their own sake.
That they shouldn't be subjected to these really unfair practices. They start getting really angry. And, I'm not a...
Gynocentrism is a thing. It really is.
I may not have made it out of high school, but, I'm not a shrink or anything. But I'm looking at these guys and I'm thinking, I think what happened was that they, at any point in their life, they saw the writing on the wall, just like I'm seeing it now. And the moment they spoke up, or the moment they got close to speaking up, they got a giant dose of shame. And so
They high profiled themselves as non-feminists. Well, maybe they weren't thinking about feminism. They were just thinking about injustice.
yeah, and yeah, they got a huge dose of shame. And I think what happens when when you get subjected to that, when you speak out against an injustice like that, and everybody tells you that you're wrong for speaking out against it,
It's in essence brainwashing.
then well, it's in essence brainwashing. But to be more specific, you have to get used to it. You just have to tell yourself those are the breaks. So then when you see someone else complaining about the same injustices, you have to inform them that this is just more shit they got to eat. And I
Yeah.
think I think that is rooted. I think that does.
I learned to suck it up. Now you learn to suck it up.
Yeah, and I think that can be healthy, right? If you're talking
in
about
some cases.
in a lot of cases, right? But I think that I think what we're talking about now is an instance where that same function gets horribly perverted.
When you're dealing with forces of nature, for example, the weather is cold and your coat is not warm enough and you got to walk 2 miles, well, you might as well suck it up until you get home. But the forces of nature are impersonal and beyond the control of humans. To suck up injustice from fellow humans, to be bullied by fellow humans, to be treated like dirt by fellow humans, that's not something anybody should suck up. You should turn the tables and make them suck up what they've tried to make you suck up.
Yep.
Reverse the suction there. Why do I feature this? Why do I talk about this? Does it sound like I am advocating for men's rights? No, I am not advocating for men's rights. As I've said, I really don't care about men's rights. I just care about getting feminism. I care about prosecuting feminism. And as a prosecutor, I build my case by presenting evidence. And Exhibit A is look at what feminism does to men. I'm just using men's problems, men's sufferings in this world as evidence against feminism. Because that'll put feminism out of business. And then all of the problems and sufferings that feminism inflicts upon men, well, those problems and sufferings will go away. But that's just a fringe benefit. I just got this personal vendetta against feminism. See, I'm not a member of the men's rights movement. I'm not an MRA. I'm just not a feminist, and I'm good and damn sick and tired and fed up with feminism. And I think the world would be better off with a lot less feminism in it. That's what I'm all about. Anyway, we are right on the halfway mark of the program, so let's go to the music break now. James, let it roll. That was the music break. And we are back into the second part of episode number 36 of the Vanguard Report. I am Fiedelbogen, your host. I am here with my fellow host, Nick Redding, a true son of the Alberta Prairie. And now in the second part of the program, we're going to move into the more long and philosophical discussion. Feminism is a ruling class ideology. Did you know that? Yeah, it is. Feminism is a ruling class ideology. And so, when you attack feminism, which is the ideology of the ruling class, you attack the ruling class itself. And how? Well, let's dig into that a little bit. We are describing both the present and the future, because the shape of the future can already be seen. As the twig is bent, so the tree's inclined, and what is presently so is apt to become more so as time marches on. So, even though I am discussing the future, I am also talking about many things that are current in the world right this very minute. The talk will be predictive, yet quite a few of these predictions are really nothing of the kind. They are already old and familiar, and you'll recognize them. Bearing this in mind, and bearing in mind certain algorithms of historical occurrence, which tend to repeat themselves, we may venture to compose our canvas in broad strokes that won't go far amiss. At present, a three-tiered social power hierarchy seems to be crystallizing in the world. From the top down, this hierarchy consists of 1, a male-dominated primary ruling class called the elite. 2, a secondary ruling class called the overclass. And 3, a more or less immobilized proletariat at the bottom of the heap, simply called the underclass. The elite makes a tiny percentage of the total population, the overclass a significantly large minority, while the underclass is distinctly the largest human reservoir of the three. In the midst of this three-tiered system, feminism plays a complex catalytic role, which our talk will enlarge upon. The transitional zones between the three power layers will appear fuzzy when viewed at close quarters, but sharper from a distance. You know, from a distance you can see things. While there is a limited degree of permeability or upward mobility, to use a classic term, it is significant that mobility between zones is growing markedly more difficult. Something like a caste system seems to be developing. All right, the elite. It should first be understood that the purpose of this entire system is to secure the overlordship of the male elite. For if in truth there be any such thing as that patriarchy, which feminist theory postulates, the male elite could well indeed merit the title. Thus considered, the irony is quickly apparent in the feminist application of this word to thoughtlessly tar multitudes of men whose veritable power amounts to very little. The most important thing to understand about the male elite, or more simply the elite, since many of them have mothers, wives, and daughters after all, is that they do not think or view the world in anything like the same terms as most of the human race. This is particularly striking in the case of political or ideological categories. Labels such as Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative, left, right, Marxist, fascist, socialist, and so on, barely exist at all for members of the elite. They view the world from a different optic entirely, wired to different emotive triggers and bound by loyalties we needn't hope to unriddle. Consequently, the elite are able to play all sides of all fences with equal pragmatic indifference in the variable service of their instrumental needs. This, in practice, makes them inscrutable puppet masters and, from our point of view, even solipsistic. They are distinctly not us. Therefore, we cannot read them as ourselves. Such aloofness, such Alterity comes naturally to them and is really no mystery at all. It is the consequence of being so powerful that you can afford to live in your own world and remain oblivious to more generally held sources of meaning. Simply stated, the elite are the high alpha males of the world, the tip-top layer of the pyramid. Through their vast and densely networked lockdown on banking and politics, they control the foundational conditions which determine how our lives will go. Lesser powers cascade from their greater power. Yes, they are a boys' club, and they are getting better and better at their game. The overclass. The next level down in the three-tiered system is the overclass. In point of numbers, this class far outweighs the elite. In marked contrast to the elite, who would rather keep a shadowy, elusive profile, the overclass constitutes the everyday face of the ruling power structure. The overclass may be understood as the delegated contractual workforce of the elite, responsible for administrative tasks and various domains involving intellectual creativity. Globally considered, they are the upper managers. In cultural terms, the overclass has distinguishing features which mark them off from the underclass. Most apparent to the eye is that they are well-financed and well-heeled. They have an air of ease and security about them. Their lives are not worm-eaten by debt to any great degree, and being well-connected and well-networked, they have a host of fallback options when things go awry. On the whole, their lives operate smoothly. They are sheltered from the vicissitudes. They have greater access to the means of self-realization in many forms, along with better food, better health care, more aesthetically pleasing physical environments, and a lower degree of stress all around. Finally, they have the means to obtain post-secondary education. Consequently, they are more likely to have done so, which makes them, quote, better educated, at least along the lines that are apt to secure political advantage in various forms. However, as counter-feminist agents of change, what chiefly holds our interest is the relationship between the overclass on the one side and feminism both ideologically and politically on the other. The overclass is heavily indoctrinated with the feminist worldview. This has been the case for some time now. It is so and becoming more so. Infiltration of feminist ideation into the world of post-secondary education, and all education, for that matter, has been one of the main vectors operating to convey this line of influence. Another, running in tandem, is the steady encroachment of women into vocational areas which are either well-paid, politically influential, physically undemanding, or all three. This process is still underway. Along with the influx of politically naive women into the sectors mentioned, it is rational to anticipate the arrival of ideological feminists in certain numbers, or even feminist cadres. Hence, an ongoing replication of the feminist political machine by both formal and informal methods, gravitating always toward a theoretical point of saturation. The objective balance of probability in no way excludes such development. It is no less rational to anticipate such development than to anticipate the contrary. What is happening in the workforce is happening simultaneously, if in varied fashion, in other domains, many of which make their impact across the board in both the overclass and the underclass. The propagation of the feminist worldview, along with the rapid extension of the femplex, is not easily contained within a particular demographic, nor would any such containment comport with feminist purposes. However, what is easily contained, or at least regulated, is the mobility of male population from the underclass into the overclass. Consider once again the infiltration of women, and consequently feminist women, into the generally desirable sectors of the working world. The upshot of this is to convert large and growing regions of the vocational landscape into effectively female-dominated, if not feminist-dominated, territory. Next, consider the widespread propagation of anti-male bias in the realm of law, jurisprudence, criminal justice procedure, policies, regulations, and codes of various kinds. Such things have happened and will continue happening. Feminism's perpetual revolution does not stop rolling until somebody or something sabotages the track and derails it. Either that or wrecks the locomotive from on board. So, in large areas of life, males have undergone something very like the totalitarian process in which selected classes of people are listed as objective enemies. Under feminism, men are objective enemies. Such is the psychic miasma that creeps slowly, invisibly, and never sleeps. If it has not yet crept into every possible corner everywhere, this is not owing to any lack of ambition to eventually do so. Such is the present condition of the overclass. It is not feasible to exclude males from the overclass. However, it is certainly possible to exclude males within subtle categories. The growing presence of the feminist political machine, along with naive acquiescence from the general public, makes possible a system of cultural filters that can exclude men who are unable to walk an agonizingly fine line in their personal manifestations. These filters grow steadily more discerning, able to capture finer nuances of personal style by turning the personal into the political in ways more and more microscopic and setting a hostile assessment on whatever does not implicitly endorse the feminist worldview. If you intend to prosper as a male in the overclass, it helps immensely to have made a full psychic capitulation to the feminist worldview. Shades of Orwell, anybody? To be a collaborationist, in other words. If you have not so capitulated, or if you are not superhumanly clever at masking your true feelings, then the filters will catch you. If not today, then certainly in 10, 20, or 30 years, when detection algorithms have grown more sophisticated. So, it is easy to see that large blocks of the male population can, for various reasons, be excluded from feminist or female-dominated ways of making a living. When you realize that these vocational sectors largely define overclass membership at the level of economic prosperity, you will see that feminist or female domination of such sectors will operate as a gatekeeping mechanism governing precisely who, in terms of male demographic subgroups, will or will not infiltrate the overclass. In the end, the feminist worldview shall effectively colonize the overclass. Non-participation in this paradigm would, to males in particular, spell non-participation in the overclass for all but a few hardy mavericks. The overclass would then consist of empowered women and feminized men. The real power would, in the final analysis, lie in the hands of women. But the final power at the very highest level will continue to repose in the hands of the, quote, patriarchal, male-dominated elite, who will use women as tools to control the bulk of the male population with a finely tuned effectiveness unprecedented in all of known human history. Thank you very much. I see we have about 6 minutes left in the program. Nick, anything you wish to say before we hit the brick wall of death?
No, I would just like to remind people to check out mensrightsedmonton.com, check out our YouTube channel, check out our Facebook, check out our Skype, our Twitter, Men's Rights Ed.
Twitter. Yes.
About it. As always, I would like to put out a big invitation to anyone in or around Edmonton or anyone coming here soon. I'd love to hear from you.
Yes. And Dick, I understand, in fact, I know you've been meeting interesting new people recently, and that's a very positive development there in Edmonton. All in all, things are moving all across the landscape. We live in interesting times, and I say interesting in a good way. Things can be interesting in a bad way or in a good way, but I think they're interesting in a good way right now. Speaking of Twitter, I am on Twitter. That is at Fiedelbogen, FIDELBOGEN, at Fiedelbogen. Go and be my Twitter follower. I'm always looking for more Twitter followers. Aren't we all? And go to cfproject.blog.com to read the Poison Manifesto. And you will be much better informed on what we're talking about here on the Vanguard Report if you get the background, backstory, position statement behind all of this. So that's cfproject.blog.com. Not Blogspot, blog. cfproject.blog.com. And, as always, we are still looking for a feminist who is brave enough to come on the show with us, with me and Nick. And we will talk about, well, we'll talk about the future.
Actually,
Yes.
Actually, I would like to take this topic, this opportunity, to broadcast that we are looking for a feminist. For a long time, even since before we started this show, I wanted to have a transsexual person, either male to female or female to male. I would prefer female to male. And they can be feminist, they can be non-feminist. I don't care. Just to discuss, not argue. Just to discuss what makes a man. I think that would be a lot of fun. I do.
Could be interesting. Well, that's still a separate item from what I'm talking about here. We are just looking for a feminist, probably a female feminist, to not argue, but discuss the difference. You know, where we stand, what the political situation map is, and what we propose to do, and what feminism proposes to do in light of the present objective political reality, the way that things are shaping up. Because things are shaping up in an interesting way. And so, everybody in the sound of my voice, put the word out along any grapevine you have access to, and we'll get such a person on the program. Funny thing is, I have talked to a number of friendly, nice feminists out there, and the discussion never gets very far. I've had some, email engagements with a few of these people, and after the second or third email, they suddenly stop writing back. And it's not due to anything that I have said, because I'm very low-key, very polite, okay? But it's like when they see the direction that the conversation is drifting in, they realize what's up, and they just don't want to go there. To them, a conversation means them telling you why you ought to be a feminist and why you don't understand feminism, and why, by implication, if you did understand feminism, then you would be a feminist. As anybody who understands what feminism really is has got to be a feminist. Of course, that goes right contrary to our principle that feminism is what we say it is. Because as non-feminists, we arrive at our non-feminism by our independent, objective observation of feminism as a thing happening in the world. And from that observation, from that study, we arrive at our conclusion about what feminism is. And it is what we say it is. And that right there is the heart of the non-feminist revolution. We are flipping the tables of definition. And we, as something existing independently of feminism, has suddenly come to life and developed a mind of its own and is talking back to feminism. Feminism no longer controls the conversation. There you go. That's the non-feminist revolution. And I think the brick wall of death is right in front of my nose. I can even feel it scraping against my nose. So, folks, come back next week for episode number 37 of the Vanguard Report. We'll see you then. And as always, never forget, feminism is what we say it is. See you next week. Bye-bye.